Hey there! Good morning, afternoon, evening, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact character review. It's been a while because the patch was delayed and because it fell into summer where everybody goes on vacation and they don't have time to do recordings and stuff, and that's why we are late. I am late. So yeah, with the patch being so slow, right, because they got delayed, we got Heizou very late. And I was already gone by then on vacation, so I couldn't record. But we're back, and it is time to talk about Heizou. So, Shikanoin Heizou. He's our first male catalyst, finally. And he is a very interesting character. I really like Heizou. I had some very small doubts when I saw him in the beta, but he seemed genuinely fun even from those videos. And giving him a shot, I seriously enjoy him. He's really fun. He fits into a lot of teams. I think he's really cool. His playstyle is really fun. So why don't we just immediately get into his kit? Let's start off with Heizou's attacks. He is a catalyst, so all of his attacks are infused. He's an anemo, so all of his attacks are infused with anemo, so they can constantly cause swirl, so that's really cool. But the cool thing about Heizou is that compared to other catalysts where they use some sort of projectile or some sort of, splash of element, Heizou uses his fists. It's so cool. He uses his fists and his feet, his kicks, and it's really cool. He's a really cool melee catalyst playstyle that is so nice and unique. First male catalyst, an insanely unique playstyle. So his normal attacks are a chain of punches and kicks, and his charge attack is an upwards kick. It's really cool and really amazing. I really like it. I have to say also that with a lot of attack speed, he feels so much better. He is kind of slow, but once you start giving him some attack speed buffs, he has some innate ones, but from characters or some sort of effect in the abyss perhaps, he really starts to feel nice with how fast he's punching things. The absolute classic Mudamdumdumda playstyle. Like, he feels really nice when you think like that. It's really fun and fluid. So yeah, his attacks proc swirl, so it's really nice. The being melee, because most catalysts are ranged, is kind of a detriment compared to other catalysts, but he's really awesome. And his playstyle is of the kind that will stay close to the enemy, so his melee range does not hurt him at all. Let's move on to his skill. So his skill is this really powerful punch that has stacks. You need to hold the skill in order to get these stacks, and at maximum stacks, the punch is just insanely powerful. This thing deals burst amounts of damage at 4 stacks. Like, it has insane scaling, and each stack increases the damage. It is seriously crazy. 10 seconds cooldown, which is very nice, finally low. So just wow. So yeah, this ability deals a lot of damage. It is the absolute meat of Heizou's own damage because it deals so much. It's insane. His first Ascension talent helps with gathering stacks, where whenever Heizou procs a swirl reaction, he gains 1 stack. Declension, as it's called. So the gist of it is, you punch things, you proc swirl, you get to 4 stacks, and then you just need to tap the skill and you will instantly throw a 4 stack skill. So that is the base gameplay of Heizou, and it just, damn, does it hurt. I've seen 80,000+ skills, and god damn does it deal a lot of damage. So yeah, it is the meat of Heizou's damage, and it delivers. As for his burst, it is a kick. He kicks a thing, I would guess an anemo ball that explodes when it finds an enemy, and it does also pull enemies a bit. It's not as powerful as something like Kazuha, of course, not compared to Venti at all. Like Kazuha, Sucrose, that sort of pull, but not that much. It deals a good amount of damage when it hits opponents. It does have really good scaling, And the energy cost is only 40. So that's insane. 12 seconds cooldown, so that's fine, but the 40 energy cost makes up all of it. So, like, yeah, and again, lots of damage. Like, wow, does it deal a lot of damage. So yeah, that's Heizou's kit. He does also has his second Ascension talent, where when you hit opponents with your skill, you do raise the elemental mastery of your other characters, not Heizou himself, which hurts a lot because it would be a nice buff to Heizou's swirl damage, but hey, that's fine. So yeah, this is Heizou's kit. It is very just like burst heavy. Like burst damage, what I mean, like, like one and done, just deletes enemies. But it all makes up for it because of his unique auto attacks. Like, it really, really is very fun to punch things and kick things and then just delete them with a skill and a burst. Like, so satisfying. And yeah, like, I don't know what to say. He really feels nice. If you're like, on the edge of pulling for Heizou when he comes back, and you're like, well, I have all of the anemo characters, do try him out. His such unique playstyle makes it so worth it to try and get Heizou. And his constellations just make him even more powerful. His first constellation gives him some attack speed when he's on the field, when he takes the field, and also gives him 1 stack of his skill. So that's less swirl reactions to be done in order to gain the 4 stacks. So that's cool. His second constellation is like focused on the pull effect of his burst, which isn't really that noticeable, like not at all. His fourth constellation is about generating energy, which is cool, it helps, but Heizou doesn't have that many like energy problems because he has only a 40 energy burst cost. So there's not really much of a reason to really like fill him with energy recharge stats or this effect. It's cool, it's nice to have, but I would have liked this to be like a C2 or something. His C6 increases the crit rate of his skill, and when you have the max amount of stacks on the skill, it increases the crit damage of it. And so when you crit with that, with the skill, it's even more powerful. And then you have the effect of the increasing crit rate with each stack, so that it helps you crit with the skill even more. And this helps a lot because Heizou does not have a crit ascension stat, since he is a 4-star character, so this helps a lot. So if you can, get him to C6 and he will just be an absolute monster. But it's not necessarily to grab these constellations. C1 I would say is really nice. C3, if you're gonna hunt for constellations without trying to get the 5-star, C3 is where you should stop, because that's where you get the level increase on your skill. But C1 is still really nice because that attack speed really feels nice, and the extra stack when Heizou takes the field is really awesome for throwing out that punch earlier without needing to swirl as much. So yeah, that's it for Heizou's kit and constellations. As for artifacts, Heizou has 2 options. You can go the classic Viridescent build and give him damaging stats on his main stats. I don't think that it's worth focusing Heizou on swirl. He doesn't have some sort of elemental mastery scaling compared to Sucrose, which gives elemental mastery based on her own, Kazuha, which gives elemental damage based on elemental mastery. It's not worth it to stack elemental mastery on Heizou. Yes, he will deal more swirl damage, but you will lose a lot of damage on that skill, and it really makes a big difference. So build him with Viridescent Verener in order to reduce the resistance of elements that you're gonna be, swirling from your characters that are off the field and are applying elements, but focus on damage. Give him an attack sans, anemo damage bonus, and crit rate or crit damage on that circlet. Or, if you want to really push Heizou's damage, go for a 2-piece Viridescent Verener for the 15 anemo damage bonus, and then some sort of 18% attack bonus. So, Gladiator, like fucking Vermilion hereafter, like Echoes of the Deep, Echoes of an Offering, like Shimenawa, all the freaking 18% attack stuff, right? And just watch as Heizou just absolutely deletes enemies with his skill. I would say that the trade-off is like, you will overall increase your team's damage by like, let's say 15% if you have Iridescent because of the Elemental Shred, or let's say you will increase Heizou's damage by 8 to 10%. So it's not that much big of a loss to see Heizou like give some big damage. But if you want a more consistent damage to help your overall team and of course be more Abyss oriented, Viridescent is the better one. But we're talking about damaging artifacts, so it's easier than, the full elemental mastery that characters like Venti, Kazuha, and Sucrose want. As for team compositions, now that we're done with artifacts, Heizou fits in a lot of spots. The main thing is to just have some sort of off-field elemental applicator. Yelan, Xingqiu, like Fischl, Beidou, all those classic supports that are off-field. Build them more towards off-field DPS, and that's even better, build Fischl with damage in mind, so give her some damaging bow and attack, electro damage, and crit stats. And that's sort of the better thing, I believe, for a team that has Heizou as a driver to give those huge bursts of damage, but helps his team with their off-field DPS. You can also put him into like some sort of like Xiangling spot where he will be on the field reducing resistance through VV while Xiangling's Tornado goes around and deals damage. That can also be a team that you can use. Raiden can also be fine. Her skill doesn't apply element or doesn't proc as often as something like Oz does or Xingqiu swords or Yelan. So she's still fine, but there are better options, Beidou as well. So just think of that. Like put Bennett in to increase the attack of your off-field characters, their off-field DPS if they snapshot their ults. But also, of course, Heizou's own damage. Put Bennett in. Maybe you would like some other anemo to further buff your off-field DPSs and maybe battery each other with Heizou and that anemo character. Maybe you want Venti in order to group up enemies, or Kazuha to buff your off-field DPS's damage, some sort of like that. You can use Zhongli for the resistance shred that he offers, of course. He's the only character. He's one of the only characters that can offer an anemo shred. So if you want Heizou to once again be even better, but your off-field DPS is also dealing more damage through the shred of Zhongli's shield, and of course you're using Zhongli, so you have that powerful shield. You can also put him in a Heizou team. But again, just always remember to have someone that will constantly apply an off-field element in order to help Heizou swirl so that he gains his skill stacks, and of course to constantly be dealing damage from that off-field position. So that's that for team compositions. He is very versatile and very fun. So let's move on to weapons. For Heizou, you want to focus on damaging weapons. Don't go for ER or EM kind of stuff, but let's go on them one by one. Favonius Codex is an energy-related weapon, and Heizou doesn't need it, so that's a skip. The Witzith, one of the big ones, of course. It offers crit damage, which is insane on Heizou, and then has the effect that increases attack, elemental damage, and elemental mastery. All of those are useful. Compared to some other catalysts, like, let's say, Ningyan, where elemental mastery is useless, here, Heizou is fine with all of them. Attack and elemental damage is, of course, the big ones, but elemental mastery is fine, because especially if you're running, Heizou with Viridis and Verener, hey, that's more swirl damage, and that's fine for the rotation. In the Abyss, it might make a big difference, but in domains, events, and such, and the overworld especially, it doesn't matter that much. It does, though. There is a bit of a problem, though. It is the cooldown of Witzith. Every 30 seconds, you can activate the Witzith, and it can definitely hurt rotations where the Witzith just is still on cooldown, but Heizou needs to be on the field right now. And yeah, it's still a good weapon. It's still an amazing weapon, I would say, but that cooldown definitely hurts. And its duration is also meh because it's only 10 seconds, and Heizou could potentially be on the field for a bit more than 10 seconds. But still, it's the Witzith. R5, this thing just deletes enemies with Heizou. Sacrificial Fragments. It's not that good because until you build up the stacks for Heizou's skill, the cooldown is almost over. So I don't think that resetting the skill cooldown really matters for Sacrificial Fragments. The EM is nice for Swirl, but not that important, I believe. Solar Pearl, insanely good on Heizou. Gives a good amount of crit rate, and of course, your attacks increase the damage of your skill and burst, and your skill and burst increase the damage of your normal attacks. Just exactly something that Heizou really likes. Normal attacks as you're proccing Swirl and building up your skill stacks, and then to just absolutely delete them with the skill, and then when you use the skill and your burst subsequently, you're increasing your normal attack damage where you're gonna go back to swirling up with your attack. So just insanely good. Solar Pearl, like if you're looking at the Battle Pass weapons and you're like, what should I get? If you're thinking of building Heizou and you do not have the Witzith, you could consider Solar Pearl. It's fine. If you really have, if you're not really in the need for a Serpent Spine or other Battle Pass weapons, you could R5 the Solar Pearl and make Heizou an absolute beast. Continuing, Mappa Mare. Believe it or not, it's not that bad of an option. It does give EM, which isn't the best for Heizou, but as we, said with the Witzith, it's not half bad. It does also have a good base attack compared to the Witzith and Solar Pearl. They do have a much lower base attack compared to Mappa Mare. But the big one is that with Mappa Mare, whenever you trigger an elemental reaction, which Heizou always does with Swirl, you gain an elemental damage bonus, and it stacks twice. And of course, Mappa Mare is craftable, so if you have some spare catalyst abilities, you can easily craft Mappa Mare, and I would even say R5 it for Heizou if you're looking for a full free-to-play Heizou, because at R5, you gain a total of 32% elemental damage bonus. So even if Mappa Mare has the EM, which isn't that useful on Heizou, that elemental damage bonus is really useful. And the extra base attack compared to other 4-star weapons helps with your attack sense, giving you some more attack. So I would easily suggest Mappa Mare on Heizou. It is, I believe, a really good option, and especially a very good free-to-play option. Blackcliff Agate. It's okay. It does give crit damage like the Witzith, right? And it is somewhat free-to-play because you can get it with the Star Glitter. But the effect, I don't know how consistent it can be with Heizou. Yes, Heizou completely deletes enemies, but the stacks on Blackcliff must be like, you need to kill the enemy to gain the stack for the Blackcliff. And you can easily leave enemies with like 2,000 or 3,000 HP with Heizou and your off-field DPS getting them, getting the kill. It's still okay, but I would actually rather have Mappa Mare as my weapon for Heizou compared to the Blackcliff. Keep your Star Glitter. Other than that, Dodoko Tails is okay, but the thing is that Dodoko Tails, you need to be going from normal attacks to charge attacks, and Heizou doesn't really do that. Using Heizou's charge attacks isn't that mandatory, so it's meh. Hakushin Ring, it's interesting. It will help some sort of electro off-field DPS, because you need to trigger an electro reaction, so you want to trigger an electro swirl. It will give, elemental damage bonus to your party members, but it's other than, those weapons, there isn't really much in terms of 4 stars. There is the Wandering Even Star. This is a 3.1 gacha weapon that is coming. It gives EM, has a low base attack, but its effect is that you gain attack based on your elemental mastery. So you could perhaps use this Wandering Even Star with an elemental mastery Sands and still be okay with your swirl damage and your attack because of its effect. So I think it's actually a pretty good Heizou weapon, but it is a gacha weapon. And you're gonna need to get it after it comes out in 3.1, compared to already having a Witsit perhaps, or just outright buying the Battle Pass for the Solar Pearl. I don't think it's that bad, and it does give your party members the buff at a 30% strength, so it is decent, but I won't guess that it is the best in numbers for Heizou himself. There's also the Fruit of Fulfillment. This is the Sumeru craftable one. It unfortunately makes you lose attack, so it's an absolute no for Heizou. So let's move on to 5 stars then. There are some decent options for Heizou. There's the Skyward Atlas, of course, one of the standard banner weapons. It is an amazingly good weapon. It gives a lot of attack, so even if your crit damage is a bit low because of that, it's fine because Skyward Atlas just gives a lot of attack. It gives a passive elemental damage bonus, very welcome on Heizou, and the effect is, It's very, very good. If you already have a Skyward Atlas that's just sitting around, put it on Heizou. It's gonna do a very, very good job. Lost Prayer is also very, very good. It does have the downside, it has okay base attack, not as much as Skyward Atlas, but it does give crit rate. So, if you're looking for some good crit stats on Heizou, Lost Prayer is better than Skyward Atlas. But the problem is, that with Lost Prayer you need to be on the field for a lot of time, 16 seconds to be exact. And Heizou just doesn't stay on the field for that long to fully utilize Lost Prayer. It is a good weapon, very much on par with Skyward Atlas, but it has its downsides, So if you have both of them, consider what other Catalyst characters you have, and use the appropriate one on Heizou and the other one on that other character. Memory of Dust. Oh baby, so many people have Memory of Dust because of some banners. It's pretty much good it's very good on Heizou. Lots of attack, too much attack I would say, but it does need a shielder. But as we said, you can easily run Zhongli in a Heizou composition because of his anemo shred through the shield and because he's Zhongli, So Memory of Dust, perfectly fine on Heizou. You're gonna get so much attack on this thing, it's gonna hurt. Heizou is gonna hurt, of course. And last is Kagura's Verity, that is Yae Miko's Catalyst. It has really good stats, a lot of crit damage and really good base attack. It's just that the way it works with elemental skills might you need to stack it up, because Yae Miko has 3 stacks of her skill, so the way the way that I see it, Kagura's Verity might be similar DPS wise to Skyward Atlas Lost Prayer in some situations, but if you can work your team composition and your team rotations, you might actually be able to get a lot of damage from Kagura's Verity. Now, I would guess that if you rolled for Kagura's Verity, you have Yae Miko, so why are you giving Kagura's Verity to Heizou? So, but if you want to test it out, it's definitely a very good weapon. But I would think that Skyward Atlas especially, and even Memory of Dust, are a bit, let's say more noob-friendly, more chilled out compared to Kagura's Verity, where you need to, again, look at how you're gonna do your rotations in order to gain the full effect, the full elemental skill damage that Kagura's Verity gives you. And that's it for Heizou and his weapons and Heizou overall. I really like him, as I said. His punching attacks are really cool, I really like them, and he just deals a lot of damage through his skill and burst. Really enjoyable, really fun. If you're looking for a new kind of playstyle to have some fun around in the overworld, maybe even in the Abyss or in domains while you're artifact farming or talent books or whatever, I seriously recommend Heizou. He is really fun. He's definitely the kind of character that you don't get bummed that he's, in the banner. I seriously like Heizou. And that's it. Next up is Kazuha. I finally got Kazuha on his rerun, and, he's next. So, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. That helps. Subscribe, because it also helps. And I'll see you in another video. Goodbye.